users, this video is going to pick up from our first video on Servqual. So if you haven't gotten your data to this point, you want to get your data to this point that looks like what I've got right here. And if you completely don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. You probably want to go back and watch that first video and then come back to this. If you were in class, this is where we stopped the other day. And so just to work ahead, we're gonna make this video today. All right, cool. So let's review what we've got, what we're looking at. We're looking at the results, non-formatted, from our perception, our expectation survey, and our perception survey. And remember, these, like this 5.6, is the average of the averages from the questions 1 through 4 from the dimension of tangibles. Okay. So now we're going to do, to analyze the results, at least on our first pass, we're going to do a technique called two-dimensional differencing. Sounds pretty fancy. Actually, it's relatively easy to do. So we'll just pick a spot out here, and we're about to make a graph, essentially. And it doesn't have to be like, you know, we're not building a rocket ship, so it doesn't have to be super perfect. We do have to have some proportionality and scaling, but beyond a certain point, that is not valuable to the analysis. So I'm going to do it in a way that I think balances the two that you can replicate. Some of this is going to involve some Excel technique, and we're not going to get too carried away with that. So we're just going to pick a spot out here, and for now we're going to label that as 4. Okay, we can erase that later. Now remember, what does this 4 refer to? The 4 refers to the middle of our Likert scale. So if we go this way, this would be 3. If we go this way, this would be 5. And if we go this way, this would be 2. This would be 6. We'll just, since we're over here, we'll go to 7. Now notice how this is kind of lopsided and this column is a little wider. We can pretty that up without trying very hard at all. I will come back and do that in a second. We will come back and do that in a second. But for now, we're going to go ahead over here and make things, you know, somewhat symmetrical by doing that. Now, while we're here, we're going to label this. This is the perception axis that we're going to plot our perception values against. And we'll do that here in a moment. Okay? Just to kind of make this a little nicer looking, I'm going to go ahead. What I did there was hold down with my left click and then scrolled. And we're going to go up here and just put some borders around there. And then, you know, to deal, well, because we're going to be working in this entire space, let's just do it all instead of just one row. So we're going to center the data. So usually I just non-center everything because that 7's just not playing along, and then center it again, and now we're good. We still have the problem of this column being a little too wide, and that's a simple fix. So now I'm going to go up here actually into the border on Excel and click here and hold with my left hand or finger, and then I'm going to scroll over and cover this whole area. And then I can grab any one of these columns. I don't have to grab the T column, but I am going to. And so when I say grab, I'm looking for my cursor to turn into that, that kind of grabby line there. And I'm going to left click. And as soon as it gives me the width measurement, I don't even care what the width measurement is, but it tells me I've got it. And it's Excel's way of saying, okay, bro, go ahead and adjust me to how you want me to be. And once I adjust this T column, every column that I've highlighted is going to look the same in terms of width. So let's check it out. So like that. You notice that they're all the same. Okay. Now, as you can see, like this cell is a lot taller than this cell. And again, who cares? You may not care. Are you turning this in for a report? If you are, you might want to pretty this up a little bit, because then people get focused on this kind of thing as opposed to your analysis. Depends on who's reading the report. If you're doing this on an exam to get a result and answer a question, this may not need to be very pretty. But we're just going to do this very quickly. We're going to do the same thing over here that we did up here. So we're just going to highlight these, the whole area we're working, and then we're just going to grab, this is the problem cell right here. It's because we got this Servqual warrior in that. Well, let's just fix that right now. We'll just get this out of the way, and we'll grab that, drag it to somewhere where we're not working. Okay. Now, that should be easy. It looks like it corrected it on its own. But just to show you how to do it, same. We're going to grab that whole working area, pick a row that we want to resize. Again, Excel gives us that little call-out box of height. Yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, good enough, in my opinion. All right, for now. Definitely for now. Okay, we're going to move on to generating the results. So now we want to go vertically. We're going to go back to that 4, and we're going to go and make the same axis, but this time running vertically. So this would be 5, this would be 6, this would be 7. We'll go back down here, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. And this, surprise, surprise, is our expectation axis. So now we're set up to, plot our data. And I still think this is kind of wider than it is taller. So I'm just going to do that. There we go. That looks a little more proportional. Again, do I need to measure it and everything? Depends on who you're turning it into. I personally care to a point, and then beyond that, I don't. Okay, so a technique. Bottom line, we're going to, this stuff right here, we really, the questions, at this point, we don't really care about that. So I'm just going to hide it. I could delete the whole thing. Excel's got this neat little feature called hide. So I'm going to click over there, left click, and then right click, and pops out hide, and then boom. Okay. And I get that little bold line telling me there's something behind a curtain, but I don't need to know what it is, or I know it's there, but I don't need to pull it back out right now. All right, so technique-wise, I'm going to copy the T, and I'm going to put it where these coordinates tell me to go. I always start with P. That's why it's over here, and because it's the horizontal axis. And I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to walk the dog this way. So I get to 2.15. Well, we'll just say once we get over 5, so 2.5 and greater would be over here. 2.5 and less would be in this column. And what if you get right on 2.5? It doesn't matter. Pick one, because this doesn't have to be super precise. So 2.1, and then expectation 5.6. So that puts me here. And then I just paste that T. Okay? For technique-wise, if I wanted to pop a little bit more, I could fill it in like I just did. It's not necessary, but you can see a picture is worth 1,000 words. It tells me where that T is. We'll do the same thing for S. So I will go all the way over here to 5.0. That puts me in this column, and then I'm going to go down to 3.3. That puts us right here. And I'm just going to keep on going with the rest. And I can hear some of my old teammates telling me this is taking too long to do. It's like watching paint dry. So to save some time, I'm just going to highlight them all. That way I don't have to do it as individuals. 5.9, I'm over here. I'm way up here. And 6 and 3, I'm over here. And then I'm here. Okay, so two-dimensional differencing results generation is complete. So what? Why do I say so what? So what is the classic question that is the point of departure between generating results? Okay, here we have our two-dimensional differencing and analysis. What does it mean? Okay, looks pretty. I have no clue what it means though. And of course, the mad skills are within our ability to provide analysis. Because otherwise, we just wasted a whole bunch of time, especially for people who have no desire to roll around in Excel. To understand what this means, over time, we're just going to memorize how to interpret it. It's not very hard to do, in my opinion, but we need to do a few repetitions before we have this down. So for today, in our Excel spreadsheet, if you go back to master steps, you'll see this Neapolitan looking box. So if you just click on it, left click, right click, copy, and then we're going to go out here to analysis back where we were, and we'll go over here, give ourselves plenty of room, and then paste. We don't need to do anything special. Boom. Nice and big. We can read it. What I recommend here is that every time you analyze two-dimensional differencing, pick the same point, meaning the quadrant. As you see, these are in quadrants. So this kind of, I know what color that is, tan? That kind of tan box refers to this quadrant here. The green one to this, and there's a reason for that, and then gray and gray. Why are the grays the same? Well, kind of because the theme of analysis is the same. So what I recommend is that you start with this box because it is the most important box. And then you work your way clockwise. And you do it that way every time. Every time you do Servqual, you get to this point, you do it, start there, up here, and go clockwise. And then you'll be good. And you won't need to use this thing anymore. Not that it's bad that you have to use it now. So, what does this mean? Well, tangibles are in our quadrant of priority. What does that mean? Well, they're a priority because we're not meeting the customer's expectations. Anytime that perception is lower than expectation, so the customer has, but even more specifically, expectations that are high. Okay, so above 4. But what they perceived in the service was not above 4. It's lower than 4. Interesting. So that means we failed to meet their expectations, arguably, quote, by a long shot. So when I say prioritize for action, we need to get inside of our process that is, and the failure there that is causing us to fail to meet our customer expectations. Okay, so we're going to take, we're going to do something about that. So we'll hold that thought for now. All right, moving clockwise. What's going on with assurance and reliability? Well, let's check it out. The customer has high expectations. That's here, just like they did with tangibles. But in contrast to tangibles, in terms of what we're doing and what the customer perceives and how the customer perceives the service went, we're meeting those expectations. Customer has high expectations. Their perception of how the service went met that. Their perceptions were pretty high. So we need to sustain whatever we're doing within our process that generates those results. We shouldn't take our eye off of that. We got to hold what we got. Okay, doesn't mean we need to put anything more into it. We do need to put something more into tangibles. Okay? We need to hold what we got. Sustain. All right, let's go down here. Let's read what our little code says. Examine for wasted effort. What does that mean? Well, the customer doesn't have very high expectations of service reliability and empathy. When would the customer not have a lot of expectations of empathy? It could just be that they don't feel that, it could be auto repair, or they just don't feel that people working on their car are going to be that empathetic to dropping $1,500 on, a new set of spark plugs or something like that. It turns out that we are exceeding those expectations, those low expectations. And so remember, we talked about when we exceed customer expectations, beyond a certain point, they don't care. They don't value the fact that we're exceeding their expectations. It's kind of an old way. You should always exceed customer expectations. Well, I would not use the word always. Be careful about using the word always anytime in life. But the more we exceed customer expectations beyond a point, they don't value that. They don't care. And then at that point, it becomes waste. And how this ties back into our whole analysis is we're putting effort into exceeding their expectations. If we dialed down that effort, we didn't put as much effort in, not that we don't want to meet their expectations, but instead of exceeding their expectations, if we only met them, then in theory, we could take that energy that's available, that we freed up, so to speak, and put it towards this, and improving this, and moving this over here. So, if we dialed down, we'd probably wind up over here. Okay, in this quadrant. Now, right now we have nothing over here. But if we have anything over here, this means, we might examine it for potentially wasted effort. But, what's going on here? The customer has low expectations, and they also have low perception of how things went. So it's not that their needs aren't being met. They actually are. It's just in an area that's not that important to customer. So in essence, we still kind of want to sustain that right-sized effort that for the customer's needs. So very much like here, we're not exceeding, we're meeting. It just so happens we're meeting them even closer. Here we have some energy to free up. Here we're doing the right thing. We kind of hold what we got, just kind of like we do up here. And that's why these two are both, theme-wise, shaded as gray. So this is what I call the first round of analysis on the Servqual. So what we're going to do in the next video is take a second pass on how can we get a little more detailed about what, in this case, we should address on tangibles instead of this just big kind of nebulous idea of tangibles that need to be improved and kind of like finding a cab in New York. How do you work with that? What does that even mean? So in the next video, we're going to do what I call the second pass at analysis, show you a technique for doing that, and we can start to dial in on the specific root cause of what's causing this from the customer's perception to be over here as opposed to be over here. All right, super. We'll see you next time.